wonderful to be with you tonight. You know, sometimes, I'm a former elected official. So I don't exactly draw all the crowds I used to draw, Gloria. I was running up to an event the other day. It was like a little bit late. I was getting there, and I raced up, and the guy that organized the event that night was standing at the door looking nervous, and I looked down. There were like 4 people seated on the front row of the auditorium. And I said, Did you see there's just 4 people for my speech tonight? And he said, yes, sir, I've seen that. And I said, well, didn't you tell him I was the speaker? And he said, no, sir, but I'm going to find out who did. Join me in thanking Gloria for bringing so many great hours today. It really means the world. It is great to be with all of you, and in the 45 minutes I've been given, followed by Q&A. Just had a look of panic on his face there for a moment. But, no, it's wonderful to be with you all. We feel so at home. And let me say, my life's changed a lot since the last time we were together. Karen and I moved back to Indiana. We bought 5 acres and a pond. I bought a John Deere riding mower. Okay. 25 horsepower, 0 turn radius. Okay. Karen lets me drive it on the part of the lawn you can't see. One of the nice parts about no longer being vice president is you get to drive your own car. One of the bad parts is you get to pay for your own gas. The greatest thing by far that's happened to the Pences since I last saw you is that our Marine Corps son and his wife, my Navy lieutenant son, and our daughter gave us not 1, not 2, but 3 beautiful granddaughters. And Karen sends apologies, but I'll tell you what, she got invited to come out and help a little bit with the toddler and the newborn outside their Marine Corps base in Yuma, and I didn't even see her go. We're into the whole grandparent thing pretty big right now as a family. And I can tell them that we appreciate that. It's been the greatest joy of our life. Well, all of our lives have changed a lot. And mostly not for the good. I mean, it's amazing for me to think how far our nation has fallen in the last 2 years. I mean, after an administration supported by the people of Iowa in such strong and decisive ways, was able to rebuild our military, revive our economy, secure our border, appoint conservatives to our courts at every level, stand with our allies, stand up to our enemies. The truth of the matter is the Biden administration has weakened America at home and abroad. And I came to Iowa to tell you that help is on the way. And I believe we're 18 months away from a great American comeback. I believe it with all my heart. I tell you, as I've traveled around the country over the last 2 years, I've had people stop me invariably at airports, at grocery stores, gas stations. It's an easy time to feel down, isn't it? I mean, think about it. Here's an administration that comes into office, and the first thing they do after our economy was poised to recover in the wake of the worst pandemic in 100 years, then the first thing they do on a party line vote is appropriate nearly $2 trillion of completely unnecessary spending and light the pilot light on the worst inflation in 40 years. On day 1 of the administration, they launched a war on energy, shut down the Keystone and Dakota pipelines that we stood up. I mean, think about it. The administration that you supported in our 4 years actually achieved energy independence for the first time in 75 years. We were for this administration, a war on energy, shutting down the leasing process in public land, shutting down most of the Alaska National Wildlife region has resulted in gasoline prices those first 2 years down through the roof. And families are hurting. Maybe one of the blessings of having returned to Indiana and returned to a normal life for our family is that I have a sense of how this hardship has worked in American families. I'll never forget, I was at the gas station one time. We got some people here from what we call affectionately the region in Indiana. On the back of the room, David just raised his hand. I was up in Hobart at the gas station. And a young mother pulled in, and I was at the next pump, and we were there talking about gasoline prices. And so I saw two young children, a couple of maybe 2 and 3-year-olds, back seat and car seats. So I just struck up a conversation. I said, how you holding up with the high gas prices and everything? She said, oh, we're doing fine. She said, my husband's got a good job. I'm home with kids right now. And she said, we only have to go to the food bank once a week now. And I looked at her and I said, you have to go to the food bank? She said, no, it's really okay. The people at the food bank are great. And I said, why are you going to the food bank? And she said, well, look, we've only got so much budget for food and groceries and gas. It all comes out of the same pot. Frankly, with gasoline prices going where they did, we hit get hit. I mean, there's some statistics you hear that 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but I have to tell you, maybe I don't. When you talk to our neighbors and friends and we hear about the hardships and the policies the Biden administration is working on working families, I am here to ask you, step up, shape the leadership of the Republican Party, and give America a new beginning back to prosperity. It's not just policies having to do with our economy. I don't need to tell anybody in Iowa or anybody back home in Indiana. We're in the midst of the worst border crisis in American history. And it's 100% Biden made. I mean, from the first day of the Biden administration, they shut down construction of the border wall and made efforts to end what we call the Remain in Mexico policy that I negotiated on behalf of the president with the Mexican government. We all saw where Title 42 just went away a week ago. An avalanche of humanity. 5 million people have come across our border in the last 2 years. And I need to tell you, it's just the beginning. And there's human suffering on both sides of the border. But we proved you can secure the southern border of the United States with the support of the people of Iowa, with that wall, with those new policies, with a new understanding of the relationship with Mexico. We reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And we could do it again with renewed Republican leadership at the national level. We really can. The assault on our values, trampling of our liberties on a regular basis, including parental rights in our schools. Tomorrow we'll be gathering to talk a little bit more about parental rights in our schools. Our foundation we created in Washington, D.C., I was proud, stepped into now a federal court of appeals case regarding the Lindmark Community School. I mean, it's just incomprehensible that a student would be required in public school to have a written permission slip to get a Tylenol, that they could get a gender transition plan from the health department without ever notifying their parents. I'm talking to you as a dad, I'm talking to you as a grandfather. That's not bad policy, that's crazy. And we're going to get it stopped in the courts of this country, and we're going to end all this politically correct nonsense that's happening in our schools. Lastly, I would just say to you, with some distinguished veterans in the room, can you just raise your hand if you wore the uniform of the United States? Thank you for that. I must tell you, I'm the proud father of a United States Marine. As I mentioned, one of my unworthy son-in-laws, a Navy pilot. My dad was a combat veteran of the Korean War. Karen's dad was in the Air Force. Our lives didn't take us into the uniform of the United States. I'll tell you, one of the greatest privileges I had when I was congressman, when I was governor, And as your Vice President, we're going down around and visiting the men and women in uniform. I'm telling you what, the men and women of the Armed Forces of the United States are the greatest people in this country. Are now and always have. As we talk about all these challenges at home, I'm sure I don't have to tell people here in Iowa that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was a disgrace. It never would have happened under our administration, which after we break up, I'm happy to explain to anybody. I promise you it wouldn't. The way that the Biden administration cut and ran, endangering our soldiers and Marines, costing the lives of 13 brave service members at that airport. A young Marine from Logansport, Indiana, on his birthday, by birth, and his friends. When they brought him home after he'd gone home to be with the Lord, I met his mom. Karen and I just drove up to Logansport to sit in the back row and pray. She asked to have a meeting with us. We just met with his Marine Corps parents. Just tell her we love her, we're praying for her. So admire her brave son. And then I heard the story of what happened that day. Apparently, where Bert was working was one of the gates where the terrorist suspect was seen to be moving. We recently saw in the news that there's now been testimony in the Congress that they saw the bomber walking and they tried to get an order to take him down, and they did get the order down. But the word went out on the radios, the report reports, that all the service members were supposed to pull back from the gates, shut the gates, pull back, get back into the airport, because they thought a threat was approaching. And as Alberto's fellow Marine explained to his mother, he refused to go. He said back to the radio operator, he said, most of the people in my line are women and children. And I got to get through. And he waved them through and waved them through and waved them through until he took the brunt of it. The worst of it, 13 months, among many other civilians. His mother put it so well. She said his last act on earth was an act of heart. That's the character of the armed forces of the United States today, writ large. And this administration's disastrous handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan dishonored their service and sacrifice, and the service and sacrifice of 20 years of service members to serve in Afghanistan. But let me say to any of you who are here today, or any of you that know members that serve, nothing of that disastrous withdrawal will ever diminish the honor owed to all those who served and sacrificed in Afghanistan these past 20 years, defending our nation. Beyond the loss of life, the tragedy of it, there's no question that withdrawal emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world. Russia is now on the move in Eastern Europe. China is continuing to menace in the Asia Pacific. And in the Middle East, where we've made so much progress, a vacuum of American leadership has now seen China step in to broker a peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And I must tell you, I've long believed that weakness arouses evil. The weakness of this administration on the world stage has emboldened the enemies of freedom. And the only antidote is American strength. So I really came here today first and foremost to just pay a debt of gratitude and respect to all of you. The support that we receive from people of Iowa, not just on election days, but all throughout, held our arms up, made it possible for us to do the work that we do, make the progress we made. And I want to thank you, Iowa, for the privilege of serving as your Vice President. I want to encourage all of you, like I know I don't really need to. Maybe with renewed energy, do your part on it in shaping our national leadership. Because I think we're at a time in the life of this nation where this next election is either going to start to take us back to the principles and ideals that have always made America strong and prosperous and true and inspired the world, or we're going to continue to head down into the abyss of the European-style social welfare state, abandoning our values, trampling on our liberties, and retreating on the world stage. As I said, Iowa always has played an outsized role in shaping the leadership of both political parties. But this time around, you only get one political party to shape. So I want to say to you on behalf of Republicans everywhere, do your part. Ask the hard questions. Shape the leadership. And whatever role my little family and I end up playing in the days ahead, I know Iowa is going to give us a standard bearer, whoever he or she may be, that will lead our party and lead our nation back to the principles that have always made this country strong, clear, and proud. And so do your part, and also I would say with great gratitude and humility. Just remember to pray for America. You know, when I was your vice president, when I was governor, and when I was in Congress, the words I heard most often, and I heard them every day, was someone reaching out across a rope line or stopping me on the street corner and saying, I'm praying for you. I mean, this is a nation of faith. And I truly do believe in those ancient words that say, if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and turn, he'll hear from heaven. He'll heal this land. And in a time when America has needed healing like never before, men and women of Iowa, do your part. Do freedom's work. We'll keep you posted on our plans, I promise. Remember to pray. Pray for America. Pray for all of the American people. And I truly do believe if you do all those things, that the best day for this one nation under God are yet to come. Thank you very much. God bless you.